this is an iHeart podcast.
Welcome in, Clay, Travis, Buck Sexton Show. Appreciate all of you hanging out with us. Thursday edition of the program. And we have got a ton to dive into with all of you. Margaret Olohan, who has been with us on before, I think at the RNC, has done really good work looking at Minnesota law as it pertains to the shooting, which we're going to get more into today. The next, we hope, governor of Virginia, Winsome Sears, will be on with us in hour 2, and then Trey Gowdy of Fox News, and we're going to have to ask him about some of the comments that he has made that went mega viral on Fox News yesterday. He has a book out. He was already scheduled to be on. Each of those will be guests, respectively, in the next 3 hours. But we begin with all of you and the continued fallout from the awful attack yesterday where a trans terrorist shooter with "Kill Donald Trump" written on the gun, 6 million was not enough, anti-Semitic commentary, evil, true evil, that was brought to bear in that attack yesterday. And as more details have come out, I just want to lay this out for you. And I would say my statement right off the top is, it's time for good people, moms, dads, grandmas, grandpas, all of you out there that cares about kids, to really significantly stop trying to be kind and be willing to acknowledge that almost everyone who is claiming that they're trans has a severe mental illness. And this is a perfect example, I think, of toxic empathy. You're trying to be kind. You're trying to work with a kid. In almost all circumstances, that's going to make things worse. And this situation, which we just went through in Minneapolis, is a horrible echo of what happened in Nashville, Tennessee, back just less than 2 years ago, I believe. And let me lay this out. You had in both situations a trans shooter who had attended a religious school decide that, in the case of Nashville, a girl who was trying to transition to being a boy. In the case of Minneapolis, a boy who was trying to transition to being a girl. Minors who received treatments for their trans delusions decided to go into those schools and try to murder as many young Christian kids as possible. In both situations, they pre-stalked their site. They made the decision to try to kill as many people as possible. Buck, as we were just sitting down to start the show, you shared a tweet from Caitlin Collins at CNN, which says that this killer had been touring the school, basically, to try to find out the way to kill as many people as possible. It is true evil, and I think the evil, frankly, is being accelerated, is being exacerbated, is being made worse by the fact that these people are on all sorts of drugs, trying to, in some way, alter the biological reality of their sex. And I think it's making, frankly, them more likely to be violent. And I think it's time for reasonable people to stand up against this and say, we have to stop this.
The mass murder of children here pretended that he was going to go back to the church, or that he was trying to come back into the church as a believer, and had a previous affiliation with it. So used the connection that he had previously as a cover for the operational surveillance that he did of a school with kids in it, a defenseless school with kids in it. Demons live among us, and this person was a demon. And there are so many, unfortunately, different factors that go into this, and our society is making a lot of this stuff worse, making a lot of what I think could be handled earlier on. I mean, look, the biggest one for me is the ideology of trans people are able to change their gender, and if you don't believe this, you're a Nazi and you are committing genocide. And there's language like this all over the internet right now in response to what happened yesterday. Yes. That is completely insane. It is absolutely reckless. It reminds me, Clay, of the first BLM series of protests after Ferguson, there were all these marches and rallies that were going on. And I went to some to cover them at the time I was working at the Blaze. I went to cover these rallies, and you could just go, you'd see at the rallies, they were just talking about evil racist cops killing black men all the time. Yeah. All the time. Day in and day out. And it's a lie. It's horrible. It's disgraceful. And I understand that most people will hear that and just have really bad politics, be really stupid, and vote Democrat. But some people do more than that because they see mobs of people chanting the same slogan. And that ended with, I believe it was 5 officers in Texas all being gunned down by that BLM maniac who was like, look, these cops are killing unarmed black men. I need to step in and do something about this. And he murdered police officers in cold blood. I think it was 5 of them. Horrific. By the way, the media is completely memory hold that. You know, when the media says that if you don't want people to have socialized medicine, you're hoping they die from cancer. By the way, we don't even talk really about healthcare anymore. The Democrats have just made healthcare worse in every respect in this country. Obamacare is an absolute failure. And in every metric you can look at in terms of price, in terms of access, all it gives you is coverage you don't use and an excuse to have you subsidize illegals and other people who are in the country. So put that aside for a second. The guy who was shooting at Rand Paul and others and shot Steve Scalise at that baseball diamond was saying this is for health care. Well, you could say, well, you can't blame you can't blame an ideology for one person's actions. Well, if the ideology is you're murdering people en masse because of your policy, if you take it to that extent, and this is what brings me then to Trump. They say that Trump is, even Gavin Newsom, we can play this. Gavin Newsom is a shameless, soulless liar, a power-mad, narcissistic, vile human being. And he's saying that he doesn't think there's going to be an election in 2028. Now, for most Democrats who hear that, it's just, oh, yeah, I hate Trump. You hate Trump. This is a way of expressing our Trump hatred because he's going to seize power forever. But for some people, they hear this and they go, hold on. The governor of California is saying this, Clay. The New York Times is going along with this kind of rhetoric. You know, CNN is going along. CNN last night, they referred to this guy as a she, by the way.
Yeah, we need to play that audio. Yeah.
Well, we'll get to that. Here's Newsom. I mean, I know that you've already called him out on this. Cut 20 is Gavin Newsom saying that there won't be an election in 28. Play it.
I don't think Donald Trump wants another election. You think for a second I have 24 Trump 2028 hats. His folks keep sending me. Who spends $200 million on a ballroom at their home and then leaves the house? This is serious, guys. This is serious.
So it'll be Newsom Trump in 28.
No, this guy doesn't believe in free, fair elections. He tried to wreck this country. Were you there January 6th? I mean, he tried to light democracy on fire. He dialed for 11, almost 12,000 votes. Now he's doing it in plain sight. And people say, oh, just Trump being Trump. But people actually think this guy's serious about having another election. You think he's joking about 2028? Wake up. You will lose your country. Again, it's not about Democrats, it's about all of us.
So you're absolutely convinced he's...
I'm absolutely convinced.
2028.
You've seen it. He's tried to steal the last election. He's trying to rig it in plain sight this time.
You will lose your country, Clay. He's a dictator in the making. You will lose everything you hold dear. He's either a liar, which we all know he is, or he's so crazy that he doesn't understand that people hear this and they take him seriously.
The second would-be Trump assassin. Almost no one even talks about Assassination 2.0 at the Trump West Palm Beach golf course where the guy laid in wait all day with his gun and Trump was playing golf and he came within a hole. Nobody ever asked, how did that guy know that Trump was going to be playing golf that day? How did he stay in that bush line for hours only getting stopped because a woman in the parking lot happened to see him flee and write down his license plate number? Otherwise, we may not even know who that guy is. What did he say was the reason why he was trying to kill Trump? Because he believed Democrat rhetoric that Trump was a dictator, that Trump was Hitler, and he felt like he needed to kill him. Now, that person, I think, has major mental health issues, as many people who engage in acts of mass violence do. But the logic under which he acted presupposed that what was said was true, that Trump was Hitler. If Trump was in fact Hitler, then killing him would be justified, right? That is the process in his mind through which he went. When Gavin Newsom is telling you this, he is saying Trump is a dictator, and people out there who believe him. And I just tweeted, hey, Gavin Newsom, I'll bet you $10 million that we have an election in 2028. Put your money where your mouth is. And if he bets me, I'll donate the $10 million I win to charity. But these lies have consequences because in the brain of broken people, they accept them as truth. I don't think Gavin Newsom actually believes what he's saying. He's saying it because he thinks he gets political advantage from it, because the base of the left and the Democrat Party is so broken. But there are consequences when you tell crazy people crazy things.
Well, there are a lot of crazy Democrats. I've also said before that I think if you looked at male testosterone levels, you would have a very good indicator of whether someone votes Republican or Democrat. I also think if you looked at emotional and psychological stability, you'd have a very good. The Republican Party is the party of psychological stability in America today. Just a fact. And if you look at self-described happiness and health and use of different psychiatric medications and stuff, the Democrats have a lock on all that stuff. I mean, the Democrats are the party of the emotionally and psychologically unstable. And when you have people at the very top of that party saying things like what Gavin Newsom was just saying there, Clay, or when you have people at the very top of that party who, so this is the thing, it's not in the crevices of the dark web. It's not in the places on the internet where most of us never venture or go. This is from the top. This is the difference. They love to do this thing on the right. They'll find some person who's just like a psycho loser that no one's ever heard of before, who like has some vaguely right-wing views or has some racist views, and it's immediately Donald Trump's fault. And you'll say, well, hold on a second. What does this actually have to do with Trump? He's ignoring what Trump actually says. He's ignoring the reality of who Trump puts in positions of power. I mean, you have this whole, meanwhile, the Democrats say things that if what they say explicitly is true, the crazy actions of some of these individuals seems in their minds entirely justified. The end of the republic, the genocide of trans people, this is widespread rhetoric that they use. So, and from the top of the party, from the most powerful voices, the most trusted voices among their own ideological kind, and then really bad things happen. This is supposed to be a surprise. It's going to keep happening.
I would just say hold us to the same standard as Gavin Newsom. You and I have been here together for over 4 years now. What crazy thing have we said the equivalent of there's not going to be an election in 2028? I mean, we've gotten things wrong. We're not perfect. But we haven't, I don't even think we've said anything even in the same state, in the same country, as there's not going to be an election in 2028 because Trump is going to be a dictator.
You and I are very explicit when we're angry about things, and I get very angry about some things on the show. Sometimes you do too. I think you get less, you get angry less often than I do about this stuff. But this is just, you have a sunny disposition. But when something you're really passionate about, you're really angry about it, I'll say things like, for example, somebody, took shot at the CDC recently. This person's an absolute moron who should be imprisoned to the fullest extent of the law. And that is something that he has done. If you were to go and look at what do people like me and you and others say about the CDC, we're saying they need to replace some of the senior leadership there with people who are more science-based. I'm not saying that the CDC are about to round us up in camps and experiment on us like animals and like kill us all. Like, I'm not saying crazy stuff. You're not saying crazy stuff. We're saying working within the system, the rule of law and morality and ethics. How do we address these problems? But that's not what when you're saying that people are committing genocide because they have to pretend that a guy with a penis is a woman, you're actually not working within the realm of reality, ethics, and rule of law. And the Democrats do this on a whole range of issues over and over. They are manufacturing delusions.
And emotionally creating empathy, which actually is toxic for many of the people the empathy is being created for. I just think it's time for parents out there to recognize that what you are being told you need to do for the betterment of your kid, which is why this emotional blackmail is so effective. Your kid's going to kill themselves unless you listen to us and chop their boobs off or decide that you're going to give them bottom surgery or whatever the heck it is. It's emotional blackmail on parents, and it makes me sick. honestly.
I know we have to go to break, Clyde. I just want to say this. You know, we had Dave Rutherford on yesterday, and he's an incredible guy. He's a dear friend of mine, and he's a true. I mean, he was in this. You know, when you think of combat, Rutherford saw combat. You know, and he was a medic, and he had to deal with all this stuff. Imagine if veterans came back and they had severe PTSD, and we said no. You know, you should just drink yourself into a coma. You should blame yourself for everything. You shouldn't seek help at all. The psychological trauma that you're suffering from, this is actually something that, you know, should in some way be celebrated or encouraged. It's completely insane. It's destructive. It'd be like telling somebody, hey, you have pneumonia, you know, just roll with it. Don't take antibiotics. Getting people help when they need help is the honorable, ethical thing to do.
Amen. In Israel, they're contending with the aftermath of the latest missile attacks of Friday. The Houthi rebels, armed with new missiles from a source, wants to wipe Israel off the map. And there are so many people right now in Israel struggling, particularly the elderly, thousands of families that have lost their homes because of missile attacks, people who need more shelters because of missile attacks. You can go today to the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews, help provide food distribution, critical first aid, emergency supplies. Your gift will also help place new bomb shelters across Israel along with necessary supplies for existing bomb shelters. Going to be needed in the future. And now is the time to help Israel's innocent and most vulnerable. To rush your gift, call 888-488-IFCJ. That's 888-488-IFCJ. You can also go online at ifcj.org. That's ifcj.org.
Making America great again isn't just one man. It's many. The Team 47 Podcast. Sundays at noon Eastern in the Clay and Buck podcast feed. Find it on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome back in. Play Travis Buck Sexton show. I want to give credit right now to Mary Margaret Olohan, who also wrote a book, by the way, D-Trans. I believe we had her on the show to partly talk about this, true stories of escaping the gender ideology cult. And she has a story up right now, which I was reading last night, shared it on Twitter. I'm sure we'll link it at Clay and Buck as well. Minnesota Catholic school leader warned Tim Walz of critical school safety threats in the wake of the Nashville school shooting. He did nothing. Mary Margaret, appreciate you coming on with us. Obviously, we've been talking a great deal about what happened in Minneapolis and now the tragic connection to what happened in the Covenant school shooting in Nashville. What does your reporting tell you about what Governor Tim Walz did in the wake of the Nashville shooting?
Hey, guys, it's great to be here. I'm actually outside the White House right now before I go in for the press briefing in a few minutes. But, I wanted to talk about this report we did because we found that these leaders of Catholic and independent schools out in Minnesota, they sent a letter to Tim Walz 1 week after the Covenant Christian School shooting, where a trans-identifying shooter killed kids at Covenant Christian School in Nashville. 1 week after that, they sent a letter to Tim Walz saying, look, we have a very serious security concern here. We have seen a number of shootings targeting kids, especially kids of faith, and we need to up our security for non-public schools. So private, Catholic, Christian, Muslim, Jewish, you name it. And they expressed these concerns to Tim Walz and asked for his help. They had meetings with him. They talked about it. He supposedly expressed a desire to protect these types of kids too. But ultimately, nothing was done. And I confirmed that when I talked to some of these leaders yesterday, the ones that sent the letter. They told me that ultimately nothing was done. And now yesterday we see that another trans-identifying shooter targeted kids at a Catholic school because they were Catholic. And so here we are again. And, this is something that I'm definitely interested in asking about in the briefing shortly because we have multiple shootings involving a trans-identifying shooter targeting Christian kids. We have Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota, being asked to help protect kids in schools exactly like this, and nothing was done.
Was there any reason Mary Margaret offered? I mean, so you've laid out for us that there was this ask, there was this exchange. Obviously, we know why the leaders of these Catholic schools would want this. I'm down here in South Florida, for example, and the security of synagogues and Jewish sites of interest here is the whole community knows that they have to take that incredibly seriously. And that is taken seriously by the authorities as well. Why wouldn't they get the help? Was it just a budgetary issue? Tim Walz fell asleep on the job here? What happened?
Well, that is a great question. And I actually asked Tim Walz's team myself this yesterday because it seems kind of like a no-brainer. After a shooter targets Christian students, you want to make sure that the Christian students in your state are protected. And when I asked Tim Walz's team, what steps did you guys take to protect kids, they gave me an evasive answer and didn't even address that actual question. They tried to pretend that they were hung up on questions of funding and said that they do fund private schools, when in fact I had asked, did you guys fund these safety measures for private schools? So this is an evasive technique on the part of Tim Walz's team. And what I can tell you, and this is even crazier, is in the same year that Tim Walz was being asked to protect these Catholic and Christian schools, and he didn't do it, he did provide more protections for trans-identifying people in the state, and he signed legislation establishing Minnesota as a, quote, trans refuge, and promised to protect those seeking gender-affirming care, which we know is actually just a euphemism for transgender surgeries, hormones, and puberty blockers. So while he wasn't helping, he was actually pushing this trans agenda, which we now know has hurt so many young people. We talked about this when I came out and talked about my book last summer. It's hurting so many young people. It's pushing them down this path that's an ideological one. And we even have like Trump's FTC investigating these doctors and therapists who are pushing this on kids because it's all a lie. So this is just a massive scandal of like massive levels. And, you know, we're seeing more and more Democrats shying away from the issue as they realize that it's being unmasked. But in this case, Tim Walz was a huge proponent of this ideology, and I think you should have to answer for that.
I was talking about this with Buck off air, Mary Margaret. Yesterday, we went hard, frankly, at the idea that we're giving all these kids these drugs, and now we've had the shooting in Nashville, we've had the shooting in Minneapolis. All of the evidence continues to come out that this is very much toxic empathy, that parents are being taken advantage of. I saw very little pushback. Now, we'll play some of the cuts of people trying to make that argument, but I'm talking about on social media. You wrote this book about it. I'm sure you got attacked then, but it feels like reasonable moms and dads, grandmas and grandpas are starting to have their minds opened up here, that they've been taken advantage of in terms of trying to treat this as if it is a real medical condition. What would you tell moms and dads out there listening all over the country to us right now if their 12-year-old or their 13-year-old comes to them and says, hey, I'm a different sex? What does the data show, and what is the appropriate, in your mind, way to handle this if you're a parent? I know it's a big and a difficult question, but I think a lot of parents are thinking about it in the wake of this shooting, and as we've continued to see so many more people coming out and trying to detrans after having these surgeries.
Yeah, it absolutely is probably one of the scariest questions that a parent can face in this day and age, not only because of the magnanimity of what we're dealing with coming up against the gender ideology, cults, the institution, this massive group of people that are pushing this, but also because a lot of these parents, if they take their kids to the doctor, are going to be told that their kid is transgender. They'll be asked, would you rather have a dead daughter or a living son, or vice versa? And this is a question posed to parents pretty much across the board. Every detransitioner that I've spoke with has told me their parents were given this ultimatum. We don't know this for sure yet, but it's possible that this trans-identifying shooter that killed kids at Annunciation Church yesterday, it's possible that his mother faced the same question and conundrum, and they don't know what to do about it. And so my advice would be, do your research. When your child comes to you and says, hey, mom, if your little girl comes to you and says, hey, mom, I'm a boy, don't fall prey to the anxieties. Don't trust a medical institution. Do some basic research and realize you're not alone. There's many, many other kids that have come up against this ideology due to social media, activist teachers, activist therapists, and doctors. Find community. get your kid out of the school that your child is at, because odds are it's the school and the teachers that are pushing this on them. Take their phone away from them. That is the biggest danger that kids these days are facing. Take their phone away from them. No laptops upstairs. These are some of the biggest dangers that our kids are facing these days. And a lot of parents think that it's just mean or, makes their child feel stupid to not have that technology. Your child will benefit enormously from not having access to transgender ideology online. I promise you. So there's so many steps that can be taken. There's so many organizations that can help. Parents Defending Education is one organization that is really vociferous on this issue. Do No Harm. They're really great. They partner with tons of detransitioners, and then the detransitioners themselves. Chloe Cole, Prisha Mosley, all of these young women will speak out against the dangers of this ideology. And frankly, their stories are the reason I wrote my book, because their stories are more powerful than pretty much any argument that you or I could present, because they lived it. They know how dangerous and horrible it is. They suffered through it, and now they live to tell the tale, thank God. So I consider their stories to be some of the most powerful, and I would definitely refer parents and any young person that's questioning their gender to go and listen to these stories and understand the gravity of what they're talking about.
Talking to Mary Margaret Olohan, Daily Wire's White House correspondent. And Mary Margaret, in your research on this issue, as we just mentioned, you've written a book on this and you've been following this very closely. We had a caller yesterday who raised a very good point. Clay and I have talked about it before, but the caller gave us an important reminder of it. What is when I'm sure you've come up against this, and if you look at these clinics and the doctors that are doing these things, if the plumbing does not determine the gender, so to speak, what is the justification for these surgeries that imperfectly, to put it mildly, change the plumbing? Like, what is the rationale behind that, right? Because they'll say it doesn't matter what the parts are, it's what you feel. That's gender. But then why do we have this whole process of putting pharmaceuticals and puberty blockers and all these things, and then even surgery to change the plumbing, so to speak, if it doesn't make a difference to gender?
Well, you would have to ask some of these doctors and therapists that, because they're the ones that with very, very, very little.
Oh, no, I get that, Mary Margaret. I'm just asking you, have you ever heard any of them try to explain or give any rationale for that? Because I do think it's a very important and powerful point.
What they try and do to rationalize it is to just give you these platitudes, these ideological sayings. They'll try and tell you that, like, you don't understand because you're not well versed in this ideology. But you're right. At the end of the day, it's one of those things where I think Donald Trump Jr. does a really good job talking about this. He'll just say, this is crazy, or WTF is going on. And that's kind of the real response that everybody should be giving to it, because it's as simple and basic as that. And actually, it's one of the reasons that Donald Trump won the last election, is because he kind of gave voice to that sentiment as he was campaigning and saying, this is just crazy. You all know this is crazy. We shouldn't have to put up with this anymore. We need to protect our kids. And that campaign messaging really landed him in the White House. We saw the polls that showed that it did. It was some of his biggest campaign ads, just showing people what Kamala Harris was saying about transgenderism and, helping illegal aliens in prison get sex changes. Like, this type of rhetoric it's insane, and most people don't agree with it. So I think that, we need to believe what we're seeing, and we need to give voice to that. And the Trumps, frankly, have been doing a really good job of messaging on that. So they've been very effective, and now Trump is president, and he's been enacting a lot of different executive orders fighting back on this ideology. So I'm really interested in seeing what comes next, because, one big question I have for Caroline Leavitt at this upcoming briefing is, look, we've seen numerous trans-identifying shooters targeting Christian kids. Is the FBI going to start investigating this sphere of trans-identifying shooters targeting Christian kids? Is there going to be a trans terrorism category? What are we going to see in this area? Because it's time to stop pretending like this isn't a pattern. And frankly, during the Biden administration, when the Covenant Christian shooter targeted kids in Nashville, what we saw there was the FBI hiding the manifesto. they wouldn't release it. They didn't want to tell everyone that this shooter was trans and hated Jews and hated Christians and was a deeply troubled, mentally ill figure. And we had to actually rely on media outlets like Daily Wire to show people what was actually going on. So I'm hoping for more transparency here, for heavier investigations and more.
We appreciate that you have been on this story and others like the Covenant school shooting story. And I just would remind everybody, all of the rationales for they can't share the Covenant shooting manifesto were either just guesses or lies, depending on who you're talking about. Because there was no reason they couldn't have shared that manifesto. It was pure suppression, pure politics. Mary Margaret Olohan of the Daily Wire. I know you got to go run in and do a whole West Wing briefing thing here. So good luck to you on that. And please come back and talk to us again soon.
Thanks so much for having me, guys.
Anytime. Look, there's one company that's doing the best job out there of preserving your family's memories that you might have on old VHS tapes or in fading photos or Betamax or Laserdisc or whatever you got. And that is Legacy Box. Located in Tennessee. Clay just went out and visited them. Loves that Tennessee stuff. Legacy Box has a team of 200 plus technicians ready to hand transfer your family's memories on the digital files. So look, if you got those old videotapes, a lot of you have done this, by the way, and congratulations. Now you can send them around to friends and family. You can text them. You can put them online. If you haven't done it yet, though, this is just something you want to do. It's going to be so fun. The whole process is fun because Legacy Box will digitize your old videotapes, photos, audio tapes, whatever old media you've got that you want to bring into the digital era. Legacy Box makes it so easy. I mean, they send you a box. You fill it with the stuff that you want to get turned into digital files that'll last forever and you can share easily. And then you send in the box and then they take care of everything. It's amazing. And you get back the original materials, by the way. You just fill it up, send it in, they send it back, and you digitize everything. Legacy Box, the best in the game at this. They're great guys who run the company, and we really appreciate the long-standing partnership with this show. Go to legacybox.com/Buck. Clay and I have both done this. My family's done this. Carrie's family's done this. Go to legacybox.com/Buck. Get 50% off your order. That's legacybox.com/BUCK.
Sometimes all you can do is laugh, and they do a lot of it with the Sunday Hang. Join Clay and Buck as they laugh it up in the Clay and Buck podcast feed on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome back in here to Clay and Buck. Appreciate you all being with us. We have some follow-up on yesterday's horrific shooting to bring to you. We just want to make sure we're following the story closely, giving you all the details, and also, yes, of course, this becomes an issue of politics because the Democrats have rushed to blame gun control, have rushed to mock prayer, and, of course, to make sure that nobody thinks this has anything to do with a trans derangement syndrome situation. That they're very clear on that one. And I wanted to spend some time on what is true here and what is really going on with all of this. But I would first say, Clay, fortunately, my assessment that the news we were hearing out of the hospitals was indicative of most, if not all, of the there were, I believe, adults and children admitted for wounds from the mass shooting, and there has been confirmation that they all made it. So that is a blessing. And I would note, a lot of you were praying. I know you. We were praying here on this show while we were waiting for more news of 4 who were in critical condition. Those are the ones we were, of course, most concerned about, and the others who were stable, but they're all going home to their families. That has been confirmed. We did lose 2 children to the horrific terror attack, trans terror attack in Minneapolis, but we also have to take the good news where it comes and how we can. And the good news is that those who were admitted to the hospital with wounds all made it. And, their families are clearly overjoyed at that news. Despite all the tragedy and the horror of what happened, there can be some light in the darkness. So I wanted to note that because we were discussing that, and that was an important update that you should all know. Also, there are stories of the bravery and the love for one another from the students, from some of these teachers. Here is a 5th grader who says that his friend saved him from this shooter, Play cut 1.
It was like right beside me. I was like 2 seats away from the stained glass windows. So they were like, the shots were like right next to me.
That's scary.
Yeah.
You went under the pew after that happened?
Yeah. And
Is
then
that what everyone tried to do?
I think I got like gunpowder on my neck. Yeah.
When you heard the shots, what went through your head?
I was like, the first one, I was like, what is that? I thought it was just something. Then when I heard it again, I just ran under the pew. And then I covered my head. My friend Victor, like, saved me, though, because he laid on top of me, but he got hit.
Your friend laid on top of you?
Yeah, and he got hit.
Is this something that you've practiced before?
Yeah, we practice it, like, every month, or I don't know. But, yeah, we've never practiced it in the church, though.
His friend Clay covered him with his own body during the shooting.
Yeah, look, this is what I like to do when awful things happen. I like to talk about the people who did the right thing and who were brave and who were courageous and who made the choice to do everything that is what you would hope would happen. There's always people who run towards the sound of gunfire and do whatever they can to protect innocent people. And I think their stories oftentimes get lost because we focus too much on the killer, meaning one of the reasons I try to avoid, sometimes people don't like it. Somebody sent an email like, why don't you name the killer as often as you... Because the data reflects that a lot of people in their sick minds are doing this to try to be famous. That's what the Columbine guys did. They basically have created an entire copycat arena of school shooters who all want to be famous. They want their names to echo in infamy. And I would rather tell the story as these kids' stories come out. I would rather share stories of bravery and courage and, yes, sometimes mournful loss of the victims than give the person who is, frankly, I think evil, and certainly motivated by a desire to have their evil acts not only create infamy for themselves, but motivate others to engage in acts of evil. And so I think for all people of good conscience, it's important to shine a bright light on positivity, good, courage, overcoming evil as it does every single day. So, within that context, I do think it's important to examine why this is happening. What has occurred that in Nashville, Tennessee, my hometown, a trans person would take a gun in and try to kill innocent kids at a school that she attended, and a trans man would take a gun into the school that he attended and try to kill Christians. And I want to play a couple of these cuts, Buck, because I think they're important. You all out there listening to us right now are quite well informed on this story. But I always think it's important for you to think about what would you know if you were just not listening to this show. And maybe you're not on social media and you're not following people like Mary Margaret Olohan, who we just talked with. You're not following Buck. You're not following me. You are just kind of out there in legacy media land. What would you hear? I want to play a couple of these cuts. This is ABC News. ABC News just had to pay $16 million to settle a lawsuit with President Trump over George Stephanopoulos calling him a rapist inaccurately on television multiple times during an interview with Nancy Mace. This is, to me, not an error. This is, I want to get this guy's name, Aaron Katersky, reporting about the Minnesota shooter. Now, remember, the Minnesota shooter wrote on his gun, "Kill President Trump." Kill President Trump. He is the furthest thing from a Trump supporter you could be. Imagine you didn't know that. You hadn't seen that photo. You didn't have this information. This is what ABC News viewers heard last night, and there are millions of them in the report about this shooting. Listen.
23-year-old Robin Westman was able to leave what police called a video manifesto that they're now going through to try and establish motive. We've also been going through it and can tell you there are crude diagrams of the church. There are also photos of the weapons, and they include all sorts of writings, the names of past mass shooters, criticism of Israel, the name of President Trump. written on the guns. There are also racial slurs, nihilistic statements, all painting the picture of a disturbed individual who carried out this mass shooting on the first week of school at the Annunciation Church in Minneapolis.
Okay. How do you not say, if your goal is to inform the public about the facts of a case, how do you leave out that it was written, kill President Trump? It had President Trump's name on the gun. Well, if you're watching that, you could think, oh, that must be a diehard Trump supporter. Oh, this is one of those crazy Trump supporters. He took a gun to a school and he shot up the place. I do think that this is incredibly important. And also, Buck, I wanted to play this, and I know the news reports are using the person's name. This is not us, but in order to play this audio, I think it's important for you to hear what they're saying. Jake Tapper on CNN, they are continuing to be concerned about using the right pronoun for a terrorist killer. This is what you would have heard if you were watching CNN yesterday during their coverage, Cut 5.
The Minneapolis Star-Tribune, just as another piece of the puzzle as to who the shooter was, the Minneapolis Star-Tribune says, according to court records, because there's been some confusion about what the shooter's name was.
Yes.
That Robin Westman's mother applied to change her child's name in 2019. It was at one point Robert Paul Westman.
Correct.
But since she identifies as a female and wants her name to reflect that identification, was underage, it's now Robin Westman.
I mean, this is a mass delusion. When you have a killer terrorist and on live television you are worried about using the correct pronoun of a trans terrorist, it's indefensible.
It's indefensible. It's cowardice. It's Tapper. I'm not surprised. He's always maneuvering within the corporate layers at CNN, because it's not the audience that he works for. It's the bosses writing the checks that he tries to cater to. And with that in mind, you have to remember that some of these media institutions, certainly at CNN, there are people who are keeping score on pronoun usage. Maybe they're doing it quietly, Clay, but they tend to work in HR, other places in the building as well, and they will remember if you use the wrong pronoun, even for a child murdering psychopath like this guy was. They will remember that you don't bend the knee, and they will try to exact revenge, retribution on you career-wise later on. I still see people. I just got an email a few days ago from somebody about an unrelated matter to media, but a professional, an email of somebody I was going to be doing work for me, with pronouns in the signature.
Yeah.
Why? Why do you? I want to ask this person. I mean, I'll be honest. I want to ask why do you have pronouns in your email signature? Do you think I don't know? You're clearly a woman. Why are you telling me that you're a woman in your email signature? Like I'm no longer just passive about this. It's a bit like the mask thing, by the way. I know you're going to say, Buck, that's a crazy turn. It's really not. With COVID initially, it was just do it because it'll do something. It'll make people feel better. And then we said, all right, I mean, I guess like some places, maybe I'll put this on so you don't freak out. And then it was, you better do it or else I'll lock you up. You better do this or else I'll ban you from public access to bars and restaurants and everything else, to buildings where you work. It's the same thing with the pronoun thing. It starts out as, it's just a courtesy. And then once they get a critical mass, it's do this or you lose your job. So don't ever forget, the slippery slope is real. Slippery slope is almost undefeated. And the slippery slope with this trans madness stuff is absolutely real and established. And finally, it has started to move in the other direction where, I'm sick of saying it too. Of course, you treat trans people with kindness. You just treat them like human beings because they are human beings. But, Clay, if I walked around telling everybody you have to call me Emperor Lord of the Universe Sexton, I'm sorry, people don't have to do that. That doesn't make them a bad person because I'm not Emperor Lord of the Universe Sexton. And just because somebody wants to demand something from you, it doesn't mean they can say because of courtesy you have to go along with it. Never mind, as Trump says, the 7-foot guys were like, I want to play women's basketball now. No. Why? You don't get to.
Why should you get to pick your pronouns any more than you get to pick your adjectives? Let me tell you something. It may stun some of you. People call me some pretty tough things on social media. Some people are maybe even a little bit mean. I don't get to say, hey, sorry, my preferred adjectives are handsome, brilliant. Like, I don't get to tell you how you define me.
Well,
right?
What if somebody, Clay, what if you were sitting down with an interview, and so we'll take this in the sports world for a second. You sat down with somebody who is, an NFL player, and he's like, I would prefer that you refer to me as Heisman Trophy winner so-and-so.
Yeah.
And you look at him and you go, but you didn't win a Heisman Trophy.
Yeah.
Are you being discourteous, or are you just not living in a delusion?
I think, again, reasonable people have to stand up and say, we're not going to play this game anymore. And even beyond that,
how do the Democrats back out of this, by the way? How does the
left?
Because I think they're stuck. I think this is the problem that they've run into. They're just waiting until they have enough power again to ram it all down our throats again. That's the game. The game is not to actually retreat.
I'll give you my answer. I think gay people need to say, we're not a part of this group anymore. And I know we got a lot of gay people out there listening to us right now, and I know some of you have felt this for some time. There is a pretty big difference between saying, hey, I'm attracted to the same sex, and hey, I am a different gender than what all of us know to be true. I'll even say back in the day, we had people transvestite, right? Like, you dressed up potentially as someone you weren't. You didn't claim that you were actually that. And I think a lot of gay people, frankly, are looking around and saying, like, hey, I'm fine with the L's, the G's, the B's. This whole
this is the Dave Chappelle sketch where he got a lot of grief from the left.
I think that to answer your question, I think that gay people have to start saying, hey, this is not really our struggle. Our struggle was, hey, we want to be able to have basic human rights. We want to be able to live as we believe we should be able to live. But you don't have to have surgery to try to artificially create yourself if you are gay. And I think a lot of gay people just need to say there's a difference here. This whole identity politics has created, pardon the pun, a lot of very strange bedfellows, right? A lot of black people out there are actually very conservative and go to church all the time. And they're looking around and they're like, this trans thing is crazy. I don't think dudes should be able to win women's championships. Why am I in the same party as them? I think identity politics has to explode, and all the individuals have to make rational decisions, regardless of your race, your gender, or your ethnicity. And you have to be willing to speak truth. And a man is not a woman, and a woman is not a man. And if they can get you to lie about that, they can get you to lie about anything. And they took advantage of kindness, particularly of women. I'm sorry, women are kinder in general than men. Notice men, there is no Dylan Mulvaney. There's no man, there's no woman who used to be a man that men are like, this is the man of the year. We just don't do it. Women got taken advantage of. I think women and gay people need to say, this is not right. We're done with it. That's my answer.
So gold has been valuable for a long time. Think about history. Think about what is the most basic unit of money for thousands of years that people will consider, like, oh, well, gold. Gold has always been valuable. If you have gold coins, people will trade those for stuff because gold is good and valuable. Now, look at the last 10 years. 10 years. I just put this into AI to give me a sense of what the numbers are. Gold has had about a 188% return over the last 10 years. That's pretty good, isn't it? In fact, over just the last year, gold has gone up about 40%. So this is pretty straightforward, my friends. The thesis here is gold is valuable. Gold over time increases in value, and you should have some gold as part of your portfolio. Now, I understand Trump's doing amazing things with the economy. It's very easy to kind of rest on Trump's laurels here and say, well, we're going to look at the trade deals and look at all these things. Yeah, that's great. Trump's only got a few years in office, and I'm trying to get you prepared for your finances and your future for 10, 15, 20 years from now. And gold as a part of that plan just makes sense. A part of the plan. It's not the whole plan. It's a part of the plan. It's a way to balance your portfolio and to protect some of your savings. I'm a gold holder, and I have been for over a decade. I recommend you call my friends at the Birch Gold Group. You reach out to them because they are the best at getting you real physical gold at home. They've sent it right to my home. I've had this done so easy. And they want to have long-term gold buyers who believe in the thesis. They want long-term gold clients. And it's so easy to get started with them. Text my name, Buck, to 989898. Birch Gold will send you a free info kit on gold. Text my name, B-U-C-K. Text Buck to 989898. and Birch Gold is sending you that free info kit on gold. And just remember, they can also easily convert an existing IRA or 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA in physical gold. Maybe you have an old job, you got $15,000, $20,000, $50,000 in that IRA or that 401k rather. They can transition that into gold for you, and then you're just watching as gold increases in value over time. Text my name Buck to 989898 today.
Stories of freedom, stories of America, inspirational stories that unite us all. Each day, spend time with Clay and Buck. Find them on the free iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Clay, have you heard of the Rio Reset?
Sounds like a trendy new workout, Buck.
It does, but it's actually a big summit going on in Brazil. The formal name is BRICS, which stands for Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. But they've just added 5 new members.
Smart move to stick with BRICS. We know what happens when acronyms don't end. They confuse everyone.
Well, that's an understatement. BRICS is a group of emerging economies hoping to increase their sway in the global financial order.
Now that sounds like the plot line of a movie. I'm listening.
Philip Patrick is our Bruce Wayne. He's a precious metal specialist and a spokesman for the Birch Gold Group. He's on the ground in Rio getting the whole lowdown on what's going on there.
Can he give us some inside intel?
Absolutely. He's been there since day one. In fact, a major theme at the summit is how BRICS nations aim to reduce reliance on the U.S. dollar in global trade.
Yikes, that doesn't sound good. We got to get Philip on the line, stat.
Already did, and he left the Clay and Buck audience this message.
The world is moving on from the dollar. Quietly but steadily, these nations are making real progress towards reshaping global trade. And the U.S. dollar is no longer the centerpiece. That shift doesn't happen overnight, but make no mistake, it's already begun.
Thank you, Philip. Protect the value of your savings account, your 401k, your IRA, all of them, by purchasing gold and placing it into those accounts and reducing your exposure to a declining dollar value. Text my name Buck to 989898. You get the free information you'll need to make the right decision. You can rely on Birch Gold Group, as I do, to give you the information you need to make an informed decision. One more time, text my name Buck to 989898. Welcome back in, everybody, to Clay and Buck. We are joined now by Lieutenant Governor Winsome Earl Sears, the first woman elected governor, first black woman and female veteran to hold statewide office in Virginia, a fantastic patriot who is doing wonderful things in the great state of Virginia, which is a place I've spent a tremendous amount of time, actually, over the years. Lieutenant Governor, appreciate you being with us.
Well, hello, and thank you for having me. Now, I do have to correct you on one thing. I'm not yet the first female governor. I'm the first female lieutenant governor. That's a good thing, too.
Oh, sorry. Well, yes. Well, but you're going to be the first female governor, right? Tell us about it.
Well, there that is. Yes, and it's why? Because we have the common sense ideas. What do I mean? Well, it's a good question. Who asked that? I think I just did. Well, it's because, again, we have been able to present an economy to the people of Virginia, and they love it. They love that we've created so many jobs, 276,000 people working that weren't before we came into office. We also have over 250,000 job openings, and then we've created, on top of that, 15,000 plus new business startups. Never existed. How can you do that? Because you get rid of barriers, you get rid of regulations, and you become people who want Virginia to succeed. So my opponent says now she's running on our successes. Wait, you're a Democrat running on the successes that we created? You're not going to keep them if you win, which she won't. But if she were to win, she would dismantle and destroy everything that we've created. So she's got the problem, not me. We've been doing the work. Abigail, where have you been?
We're talking to Winsome Sears, Lieutenant Governor of Virginia, who hopes and should be the next governor. I saw some of these statements from Abigail Spanberger, who is the Democrat nominee, on men and women's sports. And she dodged the question like she was Neo in the Matrix. I mean, she is doing everything she can do to avoid saying what is very easy for everybody, 90+%, I think, of actual sports fans, even 2/3 of Democrats. Hey, men have no business in women's sports. I saw your ad. I loved it. You're nailing her on this. But isn't it about just how out of touch she is with Virginia that she can't speak the truth on this?
Well, everything about her is out of touch, and none of it makes any sense. Here are the parents wanting to raise their boys to respect women, to honor women. And then we have, for example, the Loudoun County School Board, who have disciplined the two young men because they are uncomfortable being forced to undress in front of a female. And for that, they are now labeled sexual in their school records, sexual harassers. But this is what their parents have been raising them to be, to respect women. So you have now school boards who are against parents. And Abigail Spanberger supports that because she voted for men, biological men in women's sports. She voted for biological men having to be able to undress in locker rooms with our young girls. She voted for all this nonsense, and that's crazy because she's got 3 girls. What is that what you want for your girl children? Parents don't want that. I wouldn't want that. She needs to come forward and defend her votes. She voted that way. Virginia doesn't want that, and that's why I'm asking Virginia for your vote this coming November so we can continue with common sense and not policies that tear us away from our children.
Lieutenant Governor Winsome Sears with us right now. This story just broke on Outkick, and it goes directly into the state of Virginia. And I'm betting that Abigail Spanberger is going to be dodging it. In addition to Roanoke women swimmers and Loudoun County, as you mentioned, in 2022, Virginia Tech female swimmers protested Leah Thomas, who was a man pretending to be a woman swimming for the University of Pennsylvania women's swim team. They reached out to ESPN, begged for ESPN to tell the story of their protest. ESPN refused to cover it. So it's not just Abigail Spanberger. It's also there have been a lot of legacy media outlets that have refused to speak truth here, and now they're trying to run cover for your opponent. I think this is really significant. I know it matters a great deal to our audience, but how protected is the legacy media trying to keep your opponent so she doesn't have to answer questions about her failures on this issue?
Oh, so they started a long time ago by not even asking any questions of me. They would just pretend I didn't exist. I mean, I would walk by them and they would not say a word. They would have microphones in everybody else's face, and it was as if I didn't exist. I mean, I have been the headliner, the keynote speaker at events. I'm a United States Marine Corps veteran. And I would be at Veterans Affairs honoring veterans events, and they would not even say that I was there, even though I was the keynote speaker. Never even said I was in the audience, never even put my picture in, but always talked about everybody else around me. So they have been dismissing me for some time now because they saw me coming and they knew that she would be in trouble, Abigail Spanberger, and they want her to win. And, here's the problem with that. I grew up partly in Jamaica, which at the time was suffering from socialist policies. And the media put their finger on the scale for other people who eventually ended up destroying what little economy we had because socialism, you can't ever do it right, and put Jamaica's economy in a tailspin. And I can't believe that that's the same thing I'm seeing here. But we're going to win because, you can't hold righteousness down. And when you're on the right side of an issue where common sense is common sense, and where I even have now Democrats who are coming up to me and saying, I'm a Democrat, but I'm going to vote for you because I don't want my girl children having to undress in front of full frontal noodle boys. I mean, think about it. We're creating sexual trauma. Trauma. Do we not have enough trauma in the world?
No, it's craziness. Lieutenant Governor Sears, I wanted to ask if you do become the governor, and we were obviously rooting for you, pushing for you, and hopeful that this is going to happen. Virginia is such a great state. The northern part of your state, some of the politics there, not my favorite. I'm just saying. Right when you get in the edge of D.C., you got some people that, you need to reach out to them and convince them of the error of, Arlington's ways. But Virginia, otherwise, a fantastic and wonderful state. I actually have family that was from Virginia and still lives there. I want to know what you're going to do if you become the governor. What will you continue on from the very successful tenure of Governor Youngkin, and what would be some of the things that the great residents of the Commonwealth would be able to look forward to?
So one of the things I'm going to do, unlike my opponent, is I'm going to continue to keep Virginia safe. I'm going to support our law enforcement, Department of Corrections personnel. We're not going to get rid of their qualified immunity. We're not going to defund them. You know who will? My opponent, Abigail Spanberger, because she has said and she has taken money from, wait for it, the defund the police PAC. You can't take, she's taken thousands from them. So, you know, it's not like we don't know what she's going to do. So we need our police, right? We need everybody there because I can't even talk about safety and security. I can't talk about jobs being created, taxes being low if we're not safe and secure, right? So that's the first thing I'm going to do. And you probably saw yesterday where she came out and said she was one of the first things that she was going to do is precisely get rid of our safety and security because she's going to stop all these ICE detainers where we have now found 4,000 criminal illegal aliens in Virginia, including the number 3 top head of MS-13. And they are in various states of incarceration and deportation. She's going to stop that. I mean, who is this woman? Where did we get her from? Well, she can't be governor. The next thing people want is that they want their taxes back in their pockets. And we've restored, $9 billion back into the pockets of Virginia's taxpayers. We have run a $10 billion surplus for each of the, for the entire time that we've been in office. And we're going to keep creating jobs. We're going to keep getting rid of regulations. We're going to have the energy that they need. We're going to have shovel-ready sites. We're going to keep their inventories and their employees safe. Jobs will flood in. And, well, you will see we will continue our great economic successes, whereas my opponent is going to tax them to death. She's going to put regulations back on them, and she's going to force every single employee, even if they don't want to join a union. That, for me, is an issue of liberty. So people know what they're going to get with me. It's all common sense, money in your pocket, jobs and safety. There you go. She doesn't know how to do this. She was never there when we were creating any of this good stuff. She was in Congress taking stupid votes against us, and now she's trying to backtrack. But she's not even back. She's like Punxsutawney Phil. We haven't seen her in a while. Where have you been? Abigail, you can't lead from behind.
Lieutenant Governor Sears, appreciate you very much, and please come back and talk to us either right before your victory or right after. You can choose.
WinsomeForGovernor.com. Please go to my website, WinsomeForGovernor.com, and help me.
Yes, go help her, guys and gals. We need to make sure we have a good governor in Virginia, and things are certainly trending in the right direction there politically. All right, look, no matter where you live, there's always a chance you become a victim of a robbery. It's the last thing we'd wish on you, but the fact remains, this kind of stuff still happens all over the country. So you need to be able to protect yourself, and you want to be proactive. You want to get ready before you need it, because if you don't have it when you need it, it's too late. It's where Sabre comes in. Sabre spelled S-A-B-R-E. In my house, in Clay's house, we have a whole range of Sabre, highly effective, non-lethal self-defense and home defense products. Look, Sabre's been at this for 50 years, so they've got decades of experience in this realm, and they are the most trusted pepper spray brand by law enforcement. Their pepper gel projectile launcher is an incredible example of why they're so well thought of by experts in home and self-defense. So go get Sabre products today. Pepper gels, pepper sprays, pepper launchers, whole bunch of stuff. Different alarms you can set up in your home, bars for doors. I mean, really, really top quality. Go to Sabre Radio, S-A-B-R-E, SabreRadio.com. At that website, you'll save 15%, SabreRadio.com. Or if you want to just call, it's really easy to do, 844-824-SAFE. That's 844-824-SAFE.
You ain't imagining it. The world has gone insane. Reclaim your sanity with Clay and Buck. Find them on the free iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome back in, Clay, Travis, Buck Sexton show. We are rolling through the Thursday edition of the program. A bunch of comments rolling in. Let me read some of the emails. Tristan. Hey guys, a long-time listener, first time reaching out. I'm 40 years old, gay male. I agree 100% that I do not identify with this current LGBTQ alphabet community. I'm a gay man. I don't agree at all with any of the trans issues except for that they should be treated like human beings, but I'm not going to be holding on to their delusion. 100% agree. Another email. Just heard you on the radio talking about how gay men and women should push back. Not just gay men. I think Buck asked a question. I think it's a really good question. How do we break sort of the national fever of delusion as it pertains to the trans-related issues? And I said we have to break identity politics overall so people stop thinking about this as a group issue and just look at it individually, whether you're gay, straight, black, white, Asian, Hispanic, whatever you want to be. But I said the gay community breaking away from the alphabet mafia here and saying, hey, this is not reflective of us. So just to be clear, you said it perfectly. Well, I appreciate that. This isn't our fight. Trans is not our fight. I'm a gay man. God made me that. God does not make mistakes. Okay. Lisa in Florida. Now, this may be tough. Lisa, you say your son is trans. So how old is he?
Now 40.
Yeah.
But when this started, like 17.
Okay. So this is, and obviously, look, there are the vast majority of trans kids out there are not going to turn into school shooters, right? So we're not saying this is directly connected. But when did your kid start to receive treatment?
Treatment for wanting to become trans?
Yes.
Yeah. So, well, the school jumped in there and started doing the counseling right there at the college he was going to. And they take 2 psychiatrists to get it approved, and both of them said, oh, sure. So 17, 18, 19, and then in the 20s, we, changed first name, last name, not me. And the next thing I know, this is who I am, and you have to call me this, which I have to this day not. And still respected, the boundaries. That's your life. If that's what you want to do, okay. But at the same time, it has gotten so radical, and I got this whole schmill too, even from him. Would you rather have a dead child or a transgender
The
child?
horrible blackmail line, emotional blackmail line they use against parents all across the country.
Absolutely.
Lisa, do you feel like the college transed, if you will, your son? Is that your belief? Or,
Yes,
I mean, how much of a role do you think they played?
That was, if you could have seen the counselor that was in there with me, and she's trying to tell me, well, she's this. I'm like, no, she is not, because I've seen her go from the bedroom to the bathroom and drop the towel. So parts are still where they are. But at the same time, I told your screener, who is very compassionate, I told my husband last night, because it has gotten so far out of hand and so radical in his whole personality. And I mean, this is a kid that grew up in Christian church and enjoyed it and loved it. Not anymore. And I don't know how to describe the feeling, but I told my husband last night, I said that he was.
Has he had the full? Has your son had the full, Lisa, the surgeries?
No.
What about drug treatment, the hormones, all those things?
Oh my goodness, yes. We've got boobs, everything, yes.
So
yes.
How has that changed his behavior? And I guess that's part one. Part two, what would you want other parents out there who might be dealing with this to know from your perspective?
Well, it immediately started changing the personality, and then actually he even admitted it, and it also started changing just health issues overall. But the other thing, don't buy into that, because it gets so far-fetched and so deep into it. I told my husband last night, I don't know if he would actually, it's gotten so bitter, and they feed into it and make it worse. I don't know that he wouldn't go out and do something like this. I can't tell you that. And as horrible as this is going to sound, I don't know how to say this, and it's just going to sound horrible, but if I thought that something would happen to my son committing suicide and he would still go to heaven, I would be better living with that than knowing that he went out and killed children, or anybody for that matter. I don't even know if that makes sense.
No,
I love my son more than my own life.
I appreciate you calling in and sharing this, because I think what it goes to is and thank you so much, and certainly I know a lot of people are going to pray for you, Lisa, but I think what it goes to, Buck, is the emotional blackmail that this puts families through that is rooted in a lie. And I'm sorry, I don't think that any of these kids are getting better, right? You're not getting a better son or daughter than you already had, and it's putting families through the ringer.
Right. I mean, imagine if you sat down with somebody, Clay, who was a serious drug addict, and their response to you was, either tell me the drugs are good or I might commit suicide. That's what's going on here. There's no choice for these parents.
This is an iHeart podcast.